Good morning, everybody. Welcome to NFT EXPOVERSE, and we're having how NFTs will shape the future of digital identity with Alan Orwick, Mauricio Soliker, and JP Bedoya. Yes. One, two, and three.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Very excited to be here. So we'll begin with a round of introductions, and this panel is going to be more so self-moderated between the three of us. We're extremely excited to talk about digital identity. We're going to go around with a round of intros, maybe start with JP, then come back this way.
We'll do that. Hey, morning. I'm JP Bedoya. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Civic. If you guys know a little bit about the identity space, Civic has been at it for a few years. We've been in the crypto space since 2016, did our ICO in 17, and we're still here. We've survived the bear market. We're going to survive this bear market too, so it's been really exciting. And what Civic does is provide that identity layer that any Web3 app can use to enable access control and access management, things from KYC to uniqueness verification, and enable also consumers to manage all their NFTs and their Web3 identity and profile.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mauricio from Sologenic, Head of Business Development. Sologenic is the largest NFT marketplace and DEX. We are also focused on tokenization of securities, stocks, and ETFs. Yeah, that's a quick brief. We're also working, the Sologenic Foundation is working on a layer 1 blockchain called Corium, launching Q1 2023.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alan Orwick. I'm the CEO of Dominant Strategies, which is the development company for Quai Network. Quai Network is also a new layer 1 that utilizes sharding and merged mining to create a more decentralized and scalable network. We're an EVM-compatible network of chains that exists in a hierarchy, so essentially allowing more miners and more nodes to participate in the network. We're currently in our testnet phase, and we're going to be ramping up for mainnet launch towards the end of this year. My background previously is from a computer science background at the University of Texas at Austin. While I was at UT, I was the president of Texas Blockchain in the undergraduate organization there. I founded that organization, and all of that research that we did at UT Austin funneled into Quai Network and the research that we have underpinning our layer 1. So extremely excited to talk about digital identity and also how that can exist in a cross-chain and interoperable world for a multi-chain future. Awesome.
Great. And also, guys, we're going to leave some time at the end for questions, so that should also be a fun part of the conversation.
Yeah, I also like to always start with how everyone got into crypto. That's always exciting stories. How did you get into crypto, JP?
Well, I think I discovered Bitcoin, I don't know, probably 8 years ago, and I thought, what is this? Never really paid too much attention to it. But then as I was trying to think about how to create a digital identity platform, I used to work at a company called LifeLock that many of you may know, that does identity theft protection. As I was looking at that and then thinking about what the blockchain technology could enable and how you can create a decentralized identity ecosystem, a self-sovereign identity where us as consumers can take ownership of everything that represents us on the digital world. That's how I then started to explore how crypto and how blockchain could enable us. And then, you know, a few years later, when I met one of the Civic co-founders, Vinny, and he was like, "Yeah, we're building this," and I said, "Okay, just sign me up," and that's really how it all started. I've never really been much into trying to make money out of blockchain, and a lot of people tell me you're missing out. But to me, it's more about the tech and what it enables rather than trying to get rich.
Absolutely. What about yourself, Alan?
So most of my journey in crypto began in around 2015, where I started with Bitcoin and just kind of experimenting with the technology, and also kind of from a similar standpoint of JP, just kind of understanding how it works and seeing what this new technology was and what decentralization meant. And it went into my undergraduate studies with computer science, where I was just trying to understand exactly what these distributed systems were, what cryptography was, how that could impact also identity, and then also just the kind of commerce and payment systems and other ways for people to transact at scale and use these systems for all of the different things such as buying coffee or having an NFT or doing supply chain work and all of these new use cases that kind of just begin to come to fruition and are coming to fruition today. So beyond that, I did time at Apple as a software engineer, and I did some various work as kind of full stack work and looking into different types of technology. And then was very fortunate to come work with other colleagues again after leaving Apple to get into the blockchain space again and take that research and then apply it. So generally, long crypto journey with the ups and downs of really just diving down into the core protocol level and trying to understand the underpinnings of this. But yeah, super excited to be where we're at today and applying that. What about yourself?
Absolutely. Myself, I was actually working, studying, and I started working at an e-commerce platform, and we integrated Bitcoin payments. And that's when I kind of started to realize the effectiveness of cross-border payments and how that was kind of like the gateway. And then once I started reading onto smart contracts, decentralized applications, you just kind of dive into the rabbit hole. And
Right.
and here we are today, full-time crypto, and it's I love the industry, and I feel really grateful to be able to work in this industry every day and work with like-minded people like you guys. It's an honor.
Cool. So let me ask you guys, what do you guys think what is digital identity to you, right? And how are NFTs part of that?
Yeah, great question. I think generally digital identity to me is the representation of my online persona and how I can represent myself without, being physical or being present in the real world, in the physical world, and having that embodiment of my values and what I want to achieve and what I want to do and how I can then also present myself to other people. And that presentation may not be how I want to be presented in the real world. And I might not want to be Alan, online, but I can be something else completely. And I can sort of disassociate that identity. But then also, if I want to strengthen that identity, I can do it in a digital manner. So there's a wide spectrum of trade-offs there where you can either be, and as a similar topic to uniqueness, which we'll drive into, is I could be one-to-one with my physical persona and my physical identity, or I can be completely disattached from it. And so I think there's a very unique proposition with NFTs that allow people to take that trade-off space and then make those decisions and decide how they want to be represented, which is super exciting to see.
Right, and when we think about NFTs, right, they are basically one-of-ones. At the end of the day, you can say there's 10,000 of those and whatnot, but they are starting to represent us, right? Many of us may use their favorite NFT to identify themselves for a specific community or on Twitter or whatever it is, and maybe you can also create multiple personas, right? And I think that's what's really super interesting on what's going on today with identity and NFTs, how those things are now basically intertwined and becoming one. And as we realize the power of NFTs beyond the JPEG and really embrace what the technology can enable, we're going to see so many other use cases coming to fruition.
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think just like in the real world, we all have our own traits and preferences and things that we like or enjoy, and that's kind of what we're looking for when we're also picking our digital identity. It's just like in the real world.
Yeah, and the verification and the way to authenticate that identity is also going to be more so important, because you can have this anonymous identity that is also becoming more verifiable over time. And you're seeing reputation become a part of that digital identity and your representation in that crypto ecosystem of those communities that you're a part in. And you see people that have this completely anonymous identity that are gaining reputation. And you're seeing these people on Twitter that you don't know who they are, but they're getting a huge following and a huge community, and they're basing their digital identity on something that is becoming more tangible. And it's being an evolving bit of tangibility in that digital space, and that's something that we couldn't really do in a Web 2 world because everything was just so lossy. There was data everywhere, and you didn't really understand how to put together that identity, but now we're seeing that come to fruition, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I think you brought a really good point, right? When you think in the Web 2 world, all our identity information is so centralized and everybody owns it, and now we have that ability to take back that control. Like using that PFP, using that NFT as that representation of who we are, building that reputation. There's so many opportunities, and I've been listening, about a bunch of the panels. Every panel, they talked about digital identity, and I'm like, okay, how did that happen? Where over the last few years, nobody really cared about identity, and now we are like so focused on it and realize the importance of it and how now decentralization is going to enable some of those things.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch back one point. A perfect example of this is like right now we've been meeting a lot of community members and followers that we just know through Twitter. They're very active and loyal part of our community, and we kind of just know them by their JPEG or their NFT,
right.
and that's like it's really funny how you just associate the person to that, and that it really is becoming our identities, and this is just gonna speed up when we go into actual metaverse applications and we're able to do unique 3D models and customize them to ourselves. It's just gonna basically speed up that process.
Yeah, I mean, my perspective on the reputation and kind of the accumulation of this digital identity is it's so important until it's not important until you realize how important it is. And it's one of those things where until you have that sovereign identity, you're always just kind of assigned this identity. You're issued a government ID, you're issued a passport, and you're given these things that make you verified and authenticated, but that's not something that you can create yourself. And in the Web 2 world, they own all of your data, they own all of your identity, they own how you manifest yourself, and then they also manifest you in many different ways to many other companies. They sell your data, they give it away for free, or they make profit on it, and that's how they do a lot of their kind of revenue generation. And if you look at a lot of the more recent trends with such as Apple blocking tracking and looking at how much that tanked Facebook's revenue, there's all of these things that are just happening behind the scenes. And the Web3 world allows us to take that back. And as you've seen all these creators here at the conference like this that are allowed to then create these new revenue streams that takes it outside of these big Web2 conglomerates. And so kind of looking at that reputation and allowing not only the fundamental backbone of the data flows be kind of solidified, but also this reputation.
Yeah, so talking a little bit about that, decentralization, right? We've touched a little bit about on that and why it is important. So if we think about multiple identities and that second identity, right? What do you think someone might want to have a second identity for?
Yeah.
I think it's fun. It's the first time in our lives that we kind of had the opportunity to choose how we want to be represented in a digital version. And that, I think more than anything is just exciting and a fun thing to do. And you own, like you said, the most exciting for me about decentralization is owning your stuff and cutting out the middleman. And yeah, I mean that's what do you think?
Yeah.
But so let me ask you something. But wouldn't that create also a lot of potential problems and scams when you are just so easily able to create these personas?
Yeah, I agree. We have to kind of come to a middle point, and I think regulation. I think we can all agree over the last 6 months that regulation will be coming to crypto, and some regulation is necessary for this to kind of be a safe space. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yes and no, right? So yes, in the space where we should be more kind of self-policing, and these communities should be self-policing of what is a scam and what isn't a scam. I don't think we need government regulation to come in and say, these need to be verified, this doesn't need to be verified, you need to use this type of NFT, this type of thing. I think these communities can evolve, and you can have these reputation systems that can be self-policing. So these kind of Web3 projects can go and say, hey, this looks like a scam. Don't use this, don't buy this. But this person has been verified on the blockchain. They've been accumulating all sorts of transactions and interacting. They might have been a mod for some project, or they might have been trading XYZ tokens and doing some sort of interaction with these communities, and that's verified, and you can see that. And so I think it's more so the manifestation of this kind of self-accumulating thing that's verified. What do y'all think on that topic?
So I think it makes sense, right? And a lot of people, I think, only hear about the bad stuff that happens on crypto and all the scams and all of that, that you say, well, all of this anonymity is creating that. And to your point, the industry needs to evolve, and that's what's happening a lot in a way that we're self-policing. We are building systems that enable the right way to build reputation, right? And it's, at the end of the day, a lot of that centers on the user's wallet, right, on your wallet, because that is that first entry point and how you present yourself with an application, with a system, with a community. And then what's in that wallet then starts becoming those different data points that enable that reputation, self-policing, and whatnot. And it's those NFTs that ultimately are non-fungible, are one-of-ones, that can start that reputation building. And then there's tools, of course, right? And Civic, for example, has some tools that enables verification of the person behind the wallet. Things like uniqueness, right? Where we are using biometrics in order to create a digital footprint of that person. So then you can only enable one wallet to be attached to your uniqueness as an individual. And if you try to then do it again for another wallet, we would not let you. So with those type of tools, I think that we can start creating this reputation systems and making the industry be more and more respected and safer for everybody to interact with.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot of pain points that we're such a young industry that there's certain things that we're still trying to fix to make it more accessible to people as well. I know NFT marketplaces and just overall crypto is not super easy to get into if you are not tech savvy and you haven't been doing your own research. So there's lots of ways to kind of eradicate the entry barrier by, for example, doing fiat on-ramps and certain things that like you said, the verification of transactions, whether it's through face scan or a fingerprint. There's lots of pain points that we're still going to integrate into the industry that's going to make everything so much more user-friendly and pretty much accessible to everyone. I feel like in the next few years, people will be using the blockchain without even realizing you're using a blockchain. And I think that's kind of at this point where we're at.
Yeah, jumping back to the second identity type of question, I'm really curious what you think, why people are using NFTs as PFPs. I've debated with my colleagues back and forth of JPEGs are stupid, JPEGs aren't stupid, but at a high level, what are y'all's thoughts on that second identity, and is this a trend that will continue to emerge, and how does that look to the future to continue to evolve?
I think a lot of it comes down to a sense of community, because the NFTs, even crypto, just community to me is the most important thing for a project. And when people are joining an NFT project, they feel a sense of belonging, and there's a lot of connection between the users, and you see it online, and it becomes kind of like a network. And then there's meetups, and it becomes more than just an identity. You're kind of joining a group of people and building a community. I think that's a big reason behind it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you touched upon it a little bit, right? It gives us the ability to create different personas, right? The sense of belonging is really important with communities. I think, I think we're all, tribal in a sense, right? We want to have that sense of belonging. We want to find those communities where we can relate to. So I think NFTs represent that, right? That's what creates the community. That's what gives you access to the community, and that's ultimately what drives value as being part of that community.
Yeah, I think it's increasingly becoming both beautiful and kind of sad how ingrained the internet is with our everyday life now. And I feel like most people born today are already subjected to this digital world just unwillingly. And so to live in that world and have these types of technologies be very optimistic or pessimistic in choosing that barrier of what we want to live in, I think having these NFTs be even as simple as PFPs and the fun stuff makes it easy for newcomers to come and take part in these communities. And then having the future of people that are finding out about crypto and learning about blockchain have this kind of lightweight, fun thing to experience, and then slowly get ingrained. Because I think everybody goes down that rabbit hole of, they buy an NFT and they, continue to learn and kind of develop their acumen of the education around blockchain technology. And so I think it's just a better world to live in if we have that sort of experience available for people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what do you guys think about interoperability with these NFTs? I know right now it's a kind of a pain point as well. If you got an NFT on Solana, you can't hold it on your. We're on XRP, for example. We can't have the profile picture yet on Twitter, and then certain applications won't accept your NFTs. You got to do different wallets for each thing. If the metaverse is gonna come to fruition, I think it all has to be interoperable, 100%. And your identity, your digital identity that you've created, has to be able to exist on the entire Web3. Don't you guys agree?
Yeah, I think interoperability is going to be important in a way that it needs to go away. And by that I mean the underlying chain needs to be completely transparent to the user.
Right.
Right? As consumers, we really don't care if it's on ETH, on Solana, XRP, whatever it is, unless, well, you're paying a lot of gas fees, right, if you're on Ethereum, but those have come down, so they're somewhat reasonable at this point, all things considered. But as a consumer, I don't really care, right? And if I want to interact with a service that is Solana native versus one on ETH native, that is a problem today. There is no real way to bridge that in a simple, meaningful, consumer-friendly way. Right. So I think that's some of the problems that we are going to be solving over the next, months and years to come. I know we are trying to do some of those things at Civic, being chain agnostic. We are starting with Solana and Ethereum because that's where we see a lot of consumer adoption, and that's really critical to identity. So I just think it's just going to take time. And at some point, I also hope that the chains themselves will create some form of interoperable standard that they can just talk to each other. And if you guys remember how cell phone companies were not able to send SMS between each other way back when, right, a few years ago, that interoperability, it's kind of the same thing on the blockchains today.
Yeah, and ultimately, we're going to be living in a multi-chain world. And there's going to be many different chains that are going to be existing. And to say one winner is going to take all, I think is just incorrect and is a bad assumption to put all of your eggs in one basket. And to create these multi-chain and chain-agnostic ecosystems should be at the forefront of every developer's mind, because users are constantly changing between chains, and developers are doing the same as well. And so in order to have this digital identity be represented in this multi-chain future, I think the technology is just going to catch up. And I think we're going to see the technology evolve, and that's one of the key pieces that we're focused on with Quai Network, is creating this sort of interoperability standard between many different chains so that users can have this abstracted view and just say, I want to enjoy my NFTs. I don't want to worry about switching networks or paying high gas or worrying about the network going down or worry about this sort of UI UX that over time is just going to evaporate. And really at a high level, it's just going to become increasingly just abstracted, and it's going to be increasingly easier to use. And so in general, I think interoperability is one of the key pieces that the NFT ecosystem is really pushing for as well. And so having a key use case and a key thing of digital identity and representing that and saying to the developers and to the ecosystems, here's why we need these technology advances, rather than just the developers trying to figure it out on their own without really a structure of what to create. And so having that kind of dual feedback system is going to be really beneficial to all projects as a whole.
Yeah, and just from business development and partnerships recently, you realize that every company is super focused on interoperability, yeah. Whether it's bridges, wrapping assets, basically NFTs to switch chains. Every MoonPay, every real fiat on-ramp is 100% committed to that, and I think we can all agree that the future is going to be interoperable, and now it's just a matter of building out the tech.
Yeah, well, it's interoperability in a secure way. So being 100% certain that this bridge won't get hacked, and if I move my funds, is that going to be secure? And how do these things not create systemic risk across ecosystems? Because that is the one key thing about interoperability. If you're not careful, you will have that contagion. And as we've seen across many projects that have blown up recently and have just completely collapsed, there can be systemic risk contagion with interoperability. And so alleviating those concerns and building a robust ecosystem with that is going to make it easier. And I think, unfortunately, we have seen some projects fail around that, but we're getting better infrastructure, and we're getting better about the self-policing, not only in the reputation, but in the systems that we build and use. Because if you go put all your money into Luna and then it blows up, and then you're like, well, great, there's all this contagion, and I had all my NFTs on this, well, you're kind of SOL there. But right. After this now, we've kind of evolved and can take these standpoints of we have to do better as a community for users and for developers to create these robust systems.
hopefully the learnings won't be as expensive
Right.
anymore.
Right.
Because they're getting really expensive these days.
Yeah, I feel like things that happen now are so much just mass scale in comparison to like last cycle, right? 3-4 years ago, this cycle really became pretty much mass adoption. Like we got the Staples Center called the Crypto.com Arena. Like crypto's here, everybody's heard about it,
Right.
and that's the first full market cycle where we seen that size of a market, you know, where it's accessible to everybody. Everybody has, well, not everybody, but I'd say 80% of people I know my age have a wallet, a crypto wallet. So it's just the magnitude. So yeah, like you said, the exploits and our mistakes are becoming a lot bigger now.
Yeah. But I think to your point of mass adoption, right? Now I'm seeing so many brands trying to figure out their NFT
Yeah.
strategy,
Yeah.
right? And that's I think another interesting area where authenticity and uniqueness is going to start playing a point, right? So how do you know that this pair of sneakers are authentic? That I think it's going to be another one of those problems that we're going to have to solve over the next couple years. I think as more companies like Nike buy this NFT projects and are trying things out, Adidas and whatnot, you have now luxury brands creating all of this content for the metaverse. So that I think it's another piece. So what do you guys think about what use cases would be well supported?
Yeah, let's dive
through
more
that?
into the uniqueness and kind of provenance and the new kind of forthcoming ideas with those topics. I think we're going to see more so just authenticity of like experience. And so it's always been like this overhanging thing. Like if you go back to 2017, everyone was using Hyperledger and wanting to verify supply chains and do all of the real world tracking. And as we talked about technology just not being there for it, I think we're seeing some of this come to fruition and we're seeing some of these different use cases play out. And so I think the experience tracking and then also just that real world mapping of uniqueness to say this iPhone is verified on a chain or this microphone is then verified or these things that are being shipped from Taiwan are verified. And so to say that uniqueness comparison and making these physical items digital as well, and then having that mapping is going to be, I think, a good use case there.
So part of what you're saying is, identity is not for people. That uniqueness and identity, like every single item can have its own unique identity.
Right.
And that can be NFTs, that can be also tradable at the end of the day.
Yeah, you can also do uniqueness. For example, something we're working on at Sologenic is Solo Originals, which are rendered 3D models, and you can, if you purchase NFT, you basically own the file, and you can plug that into any metaverse application. And we're trying to do a waitlist for our next drop where people can actually develop it with the creators and kind of customize it to their own fate and be unique to themselves. So if they want some sort of, maybe the hat they own in person and stuff like that, that's other ways and utility that we're, kind of doing that.
Yeah, and I think for creators, it's going to be extremely important in order to be able to prove uniqueness and provenance, right? You as a creator want to make sure that nobody's just creating copycats. It's so easy right now, if you think about it. I'm just going to right-click on your JPEG, and I'm going to remint it, and I'm going to say that I was the original creator of that digital good. And that's going to be a big problem as the metaverse and NFTs become more and more adopted. So, platforms like yours are going to have to be extremely careful and make sure that you are helping consumers not get scammed like that.
Yeah.
That to me is extremely important when you then say, oh, I'm going to be trading this, or I'm going to send you this, or I want to use and I want to represent myself with this, and then somebody's like, oh, that's a knockoff. I'm like, no, it's not a knockoff. Like the concept of knockoffs are going to be, you probably guys see, right, all these fake Bored Apes or whatever other collections out there. So I'm already seeing that becoming a little bit of a problem that we're going to have to tackle pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And just again, that one-to-one mapping and knowing how you can represent these physical things. Again, making sure things are authentic and then having that be part of your identity and combining that with your identity and saying, how do I interact with these things? Is there a traceable record of me interacting with these things? And then how do I make that easier for the long term there too?
And how do you guys think NFT marketplace plays into the future of digital identity?
Well, I think there's a few things. I just mentioned, right? They're going to have to be much better at protecting consumers, right? And I think there's also other use cases where once you, let's say, connect with a community and you want to be part of that community, well, an NFT marketplace will then enable you to join that community and give you the choice also of what JPEG will represent you as a member of that community. So I think they also go together, right? But if you go a little bit another step there is, as you are able to trade other types of NFTs, right, that could represent ownership of land, physical land can represent ownership of physical assets or digital assets. That's, I think, another whole world that will require, of course, identity, digital identity, to make sure that you know that's authentic, that you're getting the real fraction ownership of this. So I think it's unlimited.
Yeah, and we're going to see NFTs get more ingrained into social media as well. And I think current marketplaces have not done a great job of combining that with other ecosystems. And so if you go to OpenSea, it's very siloed to OpenSea, and you have your NFTs in one place. But I think slowly over time, we'll see more and more NFTs get baked into things like Instagram and baked into other kind of larger tech platforms. It's got adopted into Twitter. It's not a great solution, I would say, but it's slowly evolving into saying these NFTs are now usable and have a purpose and can have NFT-gated experiences and NFT-related items that give you access with your identity, whether it's your real identity or not. And so having that be that mechanism to say, this is how I want to perceive the world and this is how I want to interact with the world, and having that just continually get more ingrained into our society will be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, especially with the growth of the metaverse, NFT marketplaces are gonna turn into, like, think of it like a car dealership for your identity. Yeah. You just show up and you're gonna be like, okay, this, that, and I think the more this grows, you'll be kind of able to pick and choose, and well, at least we're trying to do that. You can work with the artists. We're trying to make it more customizable, so you can, yeah, exactly, feel more attached to your NFT.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's. I wanted to ask you guys a question. What are you most excited about in the crypto space in the coming 2 years?
Oh wow. What I'm most excited is for the negative connotation that it has to go away and just become second nature, just like you go to a website and it doesn't you don't really care if it's built on Oracle, if it's built on Java, if it's built on whatever. You don't care. You just want to make sure that it solves your problem, you can use it, and you're happy with it. That, to me, is what excites me about crypto.
Yeah. I'd say for myself, it's financial inclusion and allowing more people to take part in the financial ecosystem and seeing people become, educated on these topics, and whether that's through an NFT or through a cryptocurrency or through DeFi or DAOs or whatever it can be. And with crypto, you're able to then have these people just kind of fall down the rabbit hole again and say, I'm now learning about NFTs, but then I can see how that relates to my stock portfolio, or how that can then tie into other parts of my life, and how I store my information and store my passwords, and kind of take that sovereignty onto themselves and kind of take it across other parts of their lives. And so financial inclusion's big, seeing other countries in the world be able to use crypto and have that be something that they can take part in as a country and have their citizens use as well.
Yeah,
what about you?
Absolutely agree. I think personally, tokenization, I think there's a massive market opportunity there.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the current system is kind of outdated, The financial methods that we're using are slow, they're inefficient. Like, I think tokenization, but for that's why I was speaking about regulation. For things like that, you will need regulation.
Yeah.
And I think we're on the verge. I think we're on the verge of kind of tackling that, and that's going to really concrete crypto as a, it's like back to what you were saying about we have to build the trust back again. Don't you feel so?
Yeah. Absolutely, I totally agree, right? But I think it's just going to take all of us, right, to make sure that, I think crypto Twitter is kind of like good and bad. The way that people behave, the things that they say, the things like the way that they are using it, I think doesn't help us as an ecosystem as a whole sometimes. And it could be so powerful, and it could enable really the mass market to better understand what we're doing about crypto. So I think we can open it up to some questions
Yeah, that'd be
if
great.
you guys want. Does anybody have questions over here? Don't be shy. Over there?
Is there a microphone we can hand?
Yeah, I think
there.
she's awesome.
How's it going? Thanks for everything so far, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So, one of the questions that I had, so the PFP, is that the correct term? Can you
Profile
use
picture.
that for like signing in on particular things? So I remember when I was trying to get tickets for this event, you have to go through all of these, like, you have to put your name in, and then you have to put in your address. You got to put in your telephone number. You got to do all of these things. And I was thinking it would be sick if, like, your image handled all of that for you, so you didn't have to go through all of the BS of doing that all the time. Because, I like to sign up for different things, but I hate going through the, 19 verification. If it would be sweet if I could just give them that one blockchain image that kind of has all my information on it, and then have that kind of fill in the gaps, so I don't have to go through all the, all those kind of steps. And I was wondering, do you see an application of that kind of nature where, it starts to kind of fill in these technical,
Yeah, like an autofill
Lapse.
type of. Yeah, so I can take some of that.
Sure, yeah.
So the answer is absolutely, right? I think there's a couple of gotchas that we got to make sure that we don't fall into. One, you don't want to store any kind of PII on chain.
Yep.
Right? So you need to create a link, a verifiable link that connects your PFP with your IRL in real life data, right? So there are some very well-defined ways to do that in the digital identity world through what's called verifiable credentials, for example. That you verify your credentials once, they get stored in a secure place that only you have access to, and then you decide what is the data that can be shared with the specific system. Now, that being done with an NFT, 100%, you could do that and just see if you're connecting with the wallet, that place can say, hey, do you want to use this NFT that is linked to your identity?
Yeah, like how Google,
Exactly.
You want to sign in
Just
with
like with
Facebook,
Google Sign In,
Google,
your
you want
wallet.
to sign in with your.
Exactly. You sign in with your wallet that contains some NFT that has that information attached to it to a verifiable credential that then you decide that you want to send. So there's like, it's funny because a lot of that is what Civic started doing, right? And we have the ability to do a lot of that already. It still needs to get much more adopted by Web3 applications. But I think now that a Web3 application is much more common and easy to implement and build, we're going to see a lot of that getting adopted.
Yeah.
That's a great question. Yeah, thank you.
And I think
you guys.
having a seamless experience with that is important, because then if you sign in with your profile picture, then you can pay with your crypto as well. And then
Right.
you can have a fully integrated vertical stack to say, I'm existing in this digital world on the blockchain, and my full online presence is through this one PFP and my wallet. And I think we're starting to see this kind of emerge now, and we've seen this more in the centralized Web 2 space with like Bolt and Fast, and having that one kind of mechanism that can use your data and transfer it there, but we just haven't seen it yet fully integrated with Web 3. But I think that's a great solution.
Yeah, and also one more thing there. Those PFPs are already gating you access to events.
Right.
So if you own a Moonbird and you were in New York for the NFT New York, you would have to connect your wallet where you have that Moonbird in order to go and get that ticket for the event. So that gating is already happening, and it's great. And you're going to see that evolving quite a bit over the next months.
Yeah, I feel like all this is gonna be seamless, you know?
Yes.
Kind of like Apple in the early days, and now everything, you got Apple Pay, you got everything's just on your phone, and you can do everything with a click of a button. You can either pay, you can transfer someone money, and that's what's gonna happen with crypto wallets. I think wallets are gonna become a lot easier to use.
Yeah.
Signing transactions. And yeah, I think that's at the stage where we're at right now, where we're kind of trying to make everything user-friendly. So, like I said before, so people don't even realize they're using a blockchain, or it's just basically like using your phone.
Yep. Sure. Other questions?
Yeah.
We have a couple more minutes.
Thank you. Similar to the question about what you're excited about in 2 years with crypto in general, what are you excited about specifically with digital identity, and especially what each of your companies are doing with respect to that? Thank you.
Sure. I'll start with one thing I'm not excited about. I'm not excited about CBDCs and the government's co-opting blockchain technology. And so the antithesis of that is I'm excited about the sovereignty in which owning the data with my digital identity and knowing where my data is being used and how it's being accessed. And what we're doing with Quai Network and how that's related to the company is we want to build that layer one that can encompass the world's data and have use cases for that data. And so similar to Ethereum or Solana, in which you have these NFTs and this digital identity in those places, we want Quai Network to be a place where people can hold their assets and use as a smart contract platform to represent their digital identity.
Yeah, I think the most exciting part for me is not so much digital identity, but having ownership of our data again, and this decentralization that this brings, especially social media platforms. I think that's going to be big for, in the sense of not having all these companies owning all your information. Yeah, this didn't really have to do with what we're building, but I think that's one of the most exciting things coming to the industry in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and to me, I think having everybody realize the importance of owning your own data, because I think individuals don't realize why that really matters to them. That's one. And I think companies also realizing that giving back the user control is actually a good thing for them. I think there needs to be a fundamental shift in the way that enterprises think about consumers' data and our data, right? They don't really respect it. I think if it wasn't for regulation like the CCPA, the GDPR, that is forcing them now to tell us, hey, we're going to be doing this. I would ask, how many of us, that have an iPhone, allow an app to track you? How many of you? Please raise your hand when you get
Everyone.
that prompt.
Yeah.
You let them to track you? You let the app track you? Or you don't?
Say,
Some of them. But do you like having that choice? You like having the choice, right? And then now you can decide who can track you. And I'm exactly the same. Like, I may have allowed 1 or 2 apps to track me, and that's it. But that is the fundamental shift that needs to happen, and what I'm excited about, that I'm finally seeing people realizing how important that is. Us as consumers starting to demand that I think is so powerful, and we need to give people the tools. And that's where Civic is, coming to do, right? How do we give people the tools so they can manage and own their NFTs, their identity, and those relationships with systems that want to use that identity and only enable them to share what's necessary to share, right? You want to ask, if you want to access content, why do you need to give them your whole name? All you might just need to give them is, I'm over 18, right? Just when you go to a bar, you have to show your whole ID to that bouncer, and you're like, wait, maybe this bouncer has really good memory, You know what I mean? And there's so many also security implications and privacy implications when it comes to sharing your identity. So that huge mind shift is what I'm excited about, and the tools that will enable to do that.
Yeah.
Question over there? Okay.
Ownership. In regards to ownership and NFT, like a closet wardrobe NFT selection, if you're like a fashion stylist and you have clients and you have a special outfit and they want to wear it to a special metaverse event, how with the ownership with say Sologenic, right? Also you have the data system that will be holding NFTs. Is that correct?
We're a decentralized NFT marketplace, so you own your NFT and it's in your own wallet.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was like a Dropbox.
No.
Okay,
So you own your asset and it's in your wallet, and
Right,
yeah,
okay.
it's basically
Well,
like a
then-
token.
Okay, so that's what I was just wondering, how the transferring of that. So you are keep yours, or you just gambling, saying, okay, well here's this NFT, you can use it. I'm sending it to your wallet, and you'll be sending it back to me once you're done with the event.
Oh, okay. So I think you're thinking about maybe renting an NFT.
Yeah, like
Right.
rent the runway
So,
or something.
Okay, so there are already some. That's I think what's also interesting about NFTs is you can rent out that NFT. That can be an outfit. It could be access to some event, for example. You can rent your Moonbird, and that gets transferred to a wallet in a way that is actually secure, so that it gets transferred, but once it gets transferred, it cannot be transferred out of that wallet to anybody else. So if you are the designer, for example, and you have an outfit that you want somebody to use for that one event, then you say, okay, pay me X amount of money. You will use, there's already systems out there that enable that escrow between you, the designer, and me, the consumer that wants to use it, and then that all gets handled. And there's more of that I think that is happening. Any other questions? I think we might be coming up
might be
at
up
the
on
time.
time.
One over here.
How can I put this? Greetings, guys. My name's Diego. I'm flying out here from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah.
So, thank you, guys. I'm really excited. I'm from the Spanish community. How can we connect all this? I mean, we're already discussing the digital identity. My Spanish community doesn't even know what crypto is. What are you guys seeing different on terms of how can we get more people involved into this? Because NFT is already tokenizing our lifestyles. We're sharing our profile pictures like crazy because we identified ourselves with our NFT. So how do you guys see that, or what are you guys doing for that?
Yeah. I
All
think
right.
creating the secure systems in which it's easy for people to do it. So as we talked about, that full vertical integration of if I want to have my money associated with my NFTs and my identity, I can do it in a secure place so that I don't have to rely on the centralized banks or the big data companies like Twitter and Facebook and Google, and you can have these alternative solutions that make it easy to own your data. And so looking at how to onboard people and make it really easy, because if you go to a bank and you try to get a bank account, you need an ID, you need rent history, payment history, and all of these different factors to open a bank account. And it's really hard for a lot of people to even do that in America and across the world. And so making it easy to get a crypto wallet and have that identity begin to be your kind of self across the internet and across these various ecosystems. And so I think that experience is going to be needing to get better over time, and it needs to get improved so that it's a one-click sort of solution to say, here's my new digital identity and here's how I can access it in a secure way.
To touch on what you were saying about the Hispanic communities, I think there actually is quite a growing volume, and it comes down to education. We just need to, like myself as Latinos, we need to educate each other, and I think like it already the volume is growing in South America. Bitso exchange in Mexico is quite large. It's already making its way to mainstream, and there's a lot of high-powered Mexican millionaires and so that are speaking about crypto openly, and they're actually pushing it and educating people. So I think we're on our way there for adoption for the Latin and Hispanic community. So that's a plus.
I would add, it needs to be much simpler, and we're not there yet. So it's going to be sequential. Right now, we will, like you say, we're going to be educating a group of people, but that's only going to be able to reach a certain group of people. Once we start simplifying and making the technology much more transparent, I think we were talking a little bit about that earlier. Once you don't have to worry about that this is a blockchain thing, I need to get a wallet, I need to do this, that, or the other, that's when we're going to be able to start onboarding the next generation of people, right? That's with every technology, right? You have the early adopters and it starts going up, and then you start crossing that chasm, and then you start getting that mass audience. So I think it's going to be a combination of, it's going to take time, we're just going to have to wait a little bit as the technology matures, becomes more easy, and initially it's just, let's onboard the people that are much more comfortable with the complexity that technology has today. But trust us that we are working on making that technology much more user-friendly and accessible, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I think we owe it. We kind of have some responsibility ourselves too to educate people. We're in this industry right now, and it's still fairly new. So it's up to us if we want it to be adopted at a faster rate, and we want this to succeed. It's on to us, and also hold each other accountable. We're speaking about when we lose trust and so forth. We need to hold each other accountable, and every person in the industry has to kind of play their part, and that's really important. And I feel like this industry is full of good people, and yeah, that's it. Don't you agree that we should do that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be on all of us, for sure.
Yeah, we want to build a better world, and I think educating the youth and getting them caught up on crypto is going to be one of the key things to get us there. I think that's all.
Okay, I think we're done.
Yeah, thank you all for listening.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you
guys.
everybody.